Penguin Random House Canada presents In This Faulty Machine, a memoir of loss and transformation by Kathy Page. Read for you by Helen K. Taylor. For my sister Jan. Chapter 1. Passport. In the wake of my horrible diagnosis, as I struggled to make sense of what was happening to me and what lay ahead, the opening of an essay by Susan Sontag, read decades ago, tugged at my memory. I remembered her assertion that being seriously ill was a kind of exile or deportation to another place, the kingdom of the sick, a separation. Other writers before and since have explored, expanded on, and argued with the idea of the kingdom or country of the sick, but there was some detail of the way she expressed it that I wanted to recall. I tracked down illness as metaphor and found what I was looking for on the first page, the passport. Although we prefer to use only the good passport, sooner or later each of us is obliged, at least for a spell, to identify ourselves as citizens of that other place. In the light of experience, I could see and feel that not good, sick person passport as if it had been real. It brought Sontag's cool, almost legalistic words to life, and me to tears. Cheaply made, its charcoal grey cover displaying only a biometric chip, the new passport that I imagined was nothing like the two classy and similarly heraldic passports I already possessed, the gold and dark blue Canadian, and the maroon and gold of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, which still, for the duration of the post-Brexit transition year, allowed me to travel freely anywhere in the European Union. The grey passport did not confer freedom. Purely restrictive, it contained no space for visas. Instead, a few pages of regulations written in tiny hieroglyphic type found on the labels of medications, illegible even when you have your glasses on. A long list of forbidden activities was stapled to the back cover. The stamp, indefinite, made it clear that I was to remain in the kingdom of the sick, unless judged by persons and processes unknown to be well again. I could tell the officer behind the plexiglass that this must be a mistake. How I have a family who needs me, how I'd never asked for this document, did not fill in any application form, and do not want it. I could weep and beg, but she would merely instruct me to look at the scanner. Good, move on. The crowd I was now part of pushed toward distant exit signs. Every kind of language and diversity was there. Elderly, young, even children. Bandages, crutches, wheelchairs. Some looked sick, others not. A small boy with a shaved head slipped his cold, damp hand into mine. Ahead, a row of revolving doors, pressed into a compartment with too many others, I tried to protect the boy, only to stumble out, alone, into a car park. I was back at the hospital. Almost home. No. That was only the first impression. A cruel twist. Beneath the familiar surfaces, everything had changed. Kingdom is perhaps too grand and old-fashioned a word for this other place in which the sick must live. This simulacrum pretending to be my life is more akin to a modern state, highly bureaucratic, whether totalitarian or merely dysfunctional. Even the mental kind of travel is forbidden. I'm compelled now to devote almost all of my attention to observing the nature, frequency, intensity, and duration of symptoms. Unable to do buttons / put lid on jar / dress in leggings. Hands V weak. Things with 2 hands more difficult. Tremors worse. Juddering in arms. Walk 55 minutes. I've filled several notebooks with scrawled records of this kind, some so faintly written as to be nearly illegible. Such focus is necessary, yet also terribly destructive in the way it monopolizes the mind. The huge, rich, complex world beyond one's body and immediate environment fades at times into a vaguely realized backdrop, a view of something now beyond reach. As for who and where was I before I had to take up this additional, entirely involuntary citizenship, some things have not changed. I was and always will be the mother of our 2 children, who were at the time symptoms first showed themselves in their early 20s and beginning to live independent lives. I was, and hope to remain, happily married to their father, Richard, a man I've loved for 1/4 of a century. We lived then, as we do now, on a rocky, forested, ferry-dependent island with a population of around 12,000. We had built a ridge-top house, surrounded by a productive kitchen garden, and 10 acres of trees only a few kilometers away from the main village, a busy, artsy community hub. It's a home we will now leave sooner than intended. Before the new passport, I could work hard both professionally and domestically. I was halfway through writing my 9th novel. Though neither rich nor famous, I was doing work that mattered to me and to my readers. I travelled regularly to present my books in North America and Europe, and for the past 20 years I had taught writing part-time at a university on Vancouver Island. Fulfilling work which had helped me, a relative newcomer to Canada, become part of the local and wider creative communities. At the beginning of a new semester, I often spoke to my students about how fortunate I thought we all were to be able to spend even a few hours each week imagining the daily life of someone they had glimpsed on the bus one morning, or what a character they had already brought to life might do if faced with an impossible-seeming choice, itself to be imagined. How a world or society looked and functioned in granular detail. Likewise, learning an ancient craft, how to make compelling sentences, how to listen to the sounds of words, how to use imagery, all in the cause of constructing stories that might blossom in another person's mind. How lucky we were to have, in an era of spreadsheets and profits before people or planet, time set aside to practice and enjoy the particular and very intense form of human communication and connection that creating and sharing stories offers us. I did not mention to the students that teaching had brought me good fortune in another way, too. Back in 1994, when we both still lived in England, I met my future husband at a community education class I had been hired to teach once a week in an overheated portable classroom on the grounds of a high school in Surbiton, an outer suburb of London. On the first evening, he was both the last student to arrive and exactly on time. I checked him off the register as he slipped into the remaining plastic chair. To say that I immediately noticed him, tall, slim, his gaze both intense and open as he took in the room and the people in it, how the light sweater he wore fit him perfectly, would be an understatement. I had to make myself look away, and for a minute or two my voice seemed to belong to someone else. Relationships between students and teachers are, for good reasons, discouraged, and were so even back in 1994. However, I'm very glad we met. I think we might have waited until after the end of that term before acknowledging the attraction between us, Had it not happened in week 7 that my car was stolen? This
Sample complete. Ready to continue?